cars. Now, the GTCs were more Cup cars, but Philip Kadori and Max Lynn and Benoit Romac are all in more Ferraris. Then a couple of more Porsche at 993 GT2 Evos from 1999 for Tim Pappas in particular. That is the white car with the green and black stripe on it as we're rolling already. There's an invitation class Porsche in there as well, a GT3R. So GT3R is a proper GT3 Cup car. That would have been what was called a GT3 car, the Invitational. And we have three, because we've got a 458 Italia and a 430 GT3 from 2007. What the organisers have done there is group cars of similar lap time, not necessarily the same age or even running in the same regulatory area when they were each new. They wouldn't have been contemporaries necessarily of each other's. I think you've got to watch out for Maxwell Lynn coming through, and this is a single driver. I've said that. It is not a single driver.
No, it's not.
For some people, yes.
Majority of the front runners are running single. In fact, the highest qualifier that has a two-driver team is Tim Pappas and Jerome Blakemoden. Just been out in the previous race. One presumes Tim will start this because Jerome has only just finished with a charge up towards the sharp end of the field. Ended up in 4th overall. But right now, as the cars parade around the lap, it's full windscreen wipers on, and if one can look through the spray, you see some of the great names that ran these teams: Freisinger Motorsport, Schnitzer, et al. CRS up at the front end. Last year, 2 wins to 1 driver in this event here at Spa, Philip Kadori. Driving the same car and starting from 3rd on the grid today. That's a Ferrari F430 GTC Evo from 2010. That's one of the youngest cars, if not the youngest car in this race. But we've got 2 red and white cars on the front row. One's a Porsche. That's Emmanuel Collard in car number 123, and alongside Francois Perrodo. And again, like in an earlier race today, they were alongside each other on the front row in the first of the endurance racing legends, but that was for LMP1 cars. And Collard for years raced with Francois Perrodo. His driver coached him, and must be really proud because, you know, Francois is one of the drivers who's listened, listened, learned, and does it in multiple machinery now. He's
assembled a lovely collection of cars, the majority of which are kept down at Paul Ricard, I believe. And it's not frightened to bring them out and give them a go. Look, he just loves racing. I've been on the track with both of them in test sessions rather than in races. Francois also has at least one Peugeot 908, Porsche RS Spider, which Emmanuel and he drive, sometimes swapping between them. Just incredible to see.
What the drivers are having to do now, John, as they go around, there is quite a lot of standing water. That is going to be absolute key. And sometimes you get points on the circuit where you really need to be running out of the spray of the car in front of you. Up the Kebble Straight, it's going to be hideous. You've got, you know, plenty of trees to enclose that, you know, the shower of water that comes off the track. And but some of those, they have really got to gauge exactly where it is for the next lap at least. They don't know where it's going to be next time around.
You think anybody said on the grid, so what tyre shell do you think we should put on?
Team manager, whack round head, drive car. Right, the safety cars come round the final corner.
Well, the time started as we rolled off the grid, Bruce, as it has done each time that we've started behind the safety car. So the Cooper is getting a run out as it heads through La Source now. And no sign at the moment of anybody. I'm looking at this, and I hate to be the harbinger of doom, but I don't think we can start this race as it stands right now.
But the rain is the heaviest it's been thus far this meeting. And bear in mind, when the teams arrived here, they had 2 days of glorious weather, fabulous track time, almost uninterrupted, which was great to see. Vast majority of the cars running smoothly. And again, when you start a racing championship. It takes several years as people bring cars in historic racing to get them fine-tuned, but these cars have been running together for quite a while now, and I must say that the level of presentation, the level of the way the cars are prepared is very, very high indeed, so you don't expect the cars to fail. But right now there's no point asking them to fail by releasing the field. Up the straight they go, up the Kemmel straight to Les Combes. The spray is huge, even at the abated pace at which they're running. The hardy fans still looking down, because that view down to Les Combes is still one of the best in motor racing, because when you're high on the banking there, looking down into the braking zone and the chicane that follows, you can also see other points of the track. That's one of the things about Spa-Francorchamps I think is magical. You can see the cars bursting through the trees on the run-up from Curve Paul Frere up towards Blanchimont, and you can see them sometimes even going onto the start-finish straight. But you will be, if you're up there, bedraggled. But blessed to be bedraggled. It's Spa-Francorchamps, no less.
Wherever you're tuning in from around the world on the Peter Auto YouTube channel, we're broadcasting for the first time on the Goodwood channel as well. Hello to those of you who are watching there. We will have coverage for you right through to midnight tonight. The historic touring cars are out for the final event this evening, and I'll be kicking off again tomorrow morning with a slightly earlier start. We'll be on the air at 9 o'clock in the morning. Check that, 9:30. I've just
9:30 is first race, so we'll be cranking. Yeah, probably about 10 past 9, I think.
Yeah. It is correct, yeah. So tune in from about 9:15 or so, 9:20, and we'll be on the air for you then, and taking you through to the end of the day.
Starting to sense that the flurry of rain that come through has largely stopped falling. What we're facing now is a track that is glistening with that rainfall. Some famous liveries in there. The Emke livery, EMI on the door of that white and red Porsche. Steve O'Rourke, of course, the manager of Pink Floyd, and you know, he loved his racing. Did Le Mans many times. And Tim Sugden, who at that stage had moved up from being a single-seater driver, he worked for years to get a Formula Ford career going, but then suddenly was the Porsche Cup winner because he stepped up. And that is, John, explain what that is. It's a global prize for Porsche drivers, but it was huge for Tim's career.
Any driver, non-professional driver who drives, safety car life's gone out, so we've got to go racing, who drives a Porsche is eligible for it. And basically different championships have got a different coefficient, and it's a very complicated set of scoring. But basically, if you drive a Porsche, whether you're driving in British GT, IMSA, World Endurance Championship, in a Carrera Cup, whatever, around the world, you gain points in that, and depending on the standing of the championship and the amount of competition, whether it's a one-make series or multiple classes, etc., you get a multiplier on your points. And it's always been a big thing, and as you say, Tim Sugden, and that catapulted him into endurance racing, really.
Yeah, and full international racing, not just trying to do British Championships and things. Anyhow, the race is underway, and the first 4 positions nice and neat and tidy up into La Source. Yeah, there's no point risking it. Oh. Up the hill they go now, through Radillon, on up the straight, and it's a very tidy lead for Emmanuel Collard, as you'd expect. He started on pole position. He'll be less circumspect than Francois Perrodo, but Francois in the number 95 Ferrari, the 430 GT2, is second, as he was on the grid as they turn into Les Combes. And in behind, Tim Pappas is going well. He started in 6th place, is up to 5th, so he's changed from his black 2-litre Porsche, something a little racier, which is his 993 GT2 Evo, so he's gained a position. He'll have certainly a second bullet in his gun, because he'll have Jeroen Bleekemolen to take over later in this race.
Now, this is a pit stop race, but the pits come the pit stop comes much more quickly and opens in under 6 minutes time. Under 6 minutes time for the pit stop. So right in the middle of the race, of course. Half an hour still to go, and Emmanuel Collard then pushing away in that red Porsche 997.
Well, he's absolutely flying clear at the second time.
This is Porsche weather, mind you.
Porsche weather. It's Emmanuel Collard race, so just bear in mind, you know, he's a tip-top racer as Callum Lockie comes to join us in the commentary box. Great to see Callum. Your sort of weather, Callum.
This is, stick that headset on, Callum, and sit yourself down, and we'll have a wee...
We're talking about GT2 cars, obviously no Morgan SLRs in this race, Callum, but
no.
These conditions, it's fully wet. Is it actually raining now outside?
It is, it's pouring down.
Okay.
Good save there. A little bit of bottom. This is Porsche 911 weather, though, isn't it? You'd want to be in a Porsche in this kind of weather.
I think so, but you know what? All of these GT3 cars, they're just so good. Driven in the appropriate way, they're pretty good. But the Porsche has such all that weight at the back. I remember racing the 993 GT2 twin turbo, which I thought was a brilliant car. Yeah. Very unsophisticated compared to some of the more modern stuff. But it was absolutely ballistic in the wet because it had all that weight hanging out over the rear. And
better than a mid-engine car. Then we've got a couple of Ferraris trying to chase them. Emmanuel Collard leads from Francois Perraudot, Phil Cadore, and Max Lane are all in mid-engined Ferraris. Now these are pre-GT3 class car days, so these cars don't have any ABS, but would you rather have the mid-engine or the rear engine if you're out there right now in this?
I think I'd probably go rear engine.
Still, yeah.
It demands a slightly different driving style, as each different marque generally does. The mid-engine does set up a kind of polar moment of inertia. It wants to spin around the middle. Whereas the rear-engine Porsches, they have that extra weight over the rear, but then they're light on the front, so you do have to trail brake them, or you tend to understeer like crazy. But you should trail brake everything.
I'm not going to disagree with that. It's been a busy few years for you and Melindy. Again, I bump into you at odd times of the morning, flying out at airports. First of all, yes. Before we talk about your driving, let's talk about Gold Track and the track day business. That going gangbuster still for you?
It's going absolutely fine. We've noticed a little change, which you would expect with the current economic climate,
really?
but not enough to affect us in any way. So that's great, but of course, time will tell.
And you're driving? You seem to be driving more, if not more, now than ever before.
Well, it's absolutely great. You know, I'm very, very privileged. This weekend, I'm driving this superb Morgan SLR, the Le Mans-bodied Morgan, and for some reason, it's... Last night in quali, it was absolutely ballistic.
It just wanted to go.
It was absolutely fantastic. They've changed something, and I'm not going to say what. I think I know.
And the same driver, mind.
The previous quickest lap I've seen for one of those was a 3:01.171, and I got into the low 58s. So 2:58. So I mean, it's a step change. Yeah, wow. It was absolutely ballistic.
Even on a longish lap like this, that's a bit of time to find.
Yep.
Peter Auto,
wonderful.
Spa Classic this weekend,
wonderful.
New innovation in that we've been streaming. We're streaming the Barcelona event. We're streaming right through the season now. Another step up from Peter Auto, just retaining their places as the classic series that everybody else is aiming for.
The Premier, yes, it's absolutely fantastic. Everything about Peter Auto is top notch. The racing, the cars, the people, the hospitality is superb, and the venues. So you know, it's hard to imagine how they could improve on it. I can't think of a single thing right now. The weather, maybe? No, I love this weather.
Well, listen, look, we're Spa and it's springtime in Spa.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You know, what you're going to get, you're going to get what you're going to get.
It really doesn't matter what time of year. It's Spa.
Last weekend or 2 weekends ago for the WEC, the sun was cracking the flags, and you know, we had no rain the weekend before that for Creventic either. So yeah, it is what it is.
The weather has to break at some point.
Yeah. So at the moment, still with 25 minutes to go.
Well, I'll just tell you one thing. At the end of the opening lap, just as you started talking there, Callum, Manu Collard built an 8.6 second lead on the opening lap. He's backed it off. He's just pussyfooty. He just gained another 3.2 seconds. But
oh, really? That's all?
It wasn't about breaking the toe. In fact, he was probably being quite kind to Francois. He was getting so far ahead, he wasn't putting spray in his face, because Francois actually, he's coming out very nicely in a battle with Philip Kaddouri in their 430 GT Ferraris. There's about 3 seconds between them, but but you expect from Manu Collard, who's been, he was a top single-seater racer, didn't quite get to Formula 1. He was a star in Formula 3000, but he is one of those people that's not just been racing every year, but he's been racing a lot every year. Then all the driver coaching. So it's not like, oh, he's found his old skills. He's never left the room.
Exactly that. I mean, once you've got to a certain level, you don't ever really lose it. It's a bit like riding a bicycle. Yeah. If you've been good at riding a bicycle, you take 10 years off, it will take you a few minutes to be back on a bicycle. It's sort of lodged in your psyche, as it were, then. And yes, top guy, absolutely top guy. And in a way, it's a big advantage being first, no spray, but also you're arriving on the conditions first. So you have to judge that very, very well, which of course he will.
This is a competitive environment. I've heard people talking about how they want to win. Pro drivers like yourself getting into people's cars. The reason they have you is because they want their cars at the front of the field. But that said, how much, for example, is Emmanuel having to keep in reserve at the moment at the front of this field because of the conditions?
Well, he will definitely be being cautious. What amount of time that takes off his lap or puts on his lap, I can't say, but someone as good as him being cautious is maybe knocking half a second off or a second.
Really? That little?
Yeah, probably, or maybe a little more in a lap this length, but not much, because the thing is, you can feel what the car's doing. And if you turn into the corner, you're going a little bit quick, the front end just slightly wanders. And you can tell straight away this is right on the limit or fractionally over. So you just stay out the power and it drops the speed down, and then you feel the grip coming back in, it rotates the car, and you're back into the gentle power and then build it up.
We're looking at cars here, Callum, from sort of mid to late 90s through into the 2000s.
Yeah.
Even in the relatively short time since these cars were current, my goodness, things have moved on. So
oh my gosh, yes. I mean, if I think in 19...
How did you win the British GTs? What year were you British champion?
2000.
2000, I thought
it was a long time ago. But,
all right.
But no ABS, no traction, none of the driver aids. And the 993 GT2 that's just on the screen, I mean, I think it's a GT2 anyway.
That is,
yeah, absolutely. I loved racing those because they were so raw. The driver had to drive them. There was nothing taking any care of you. You had to drive them.
Did you have an engine map? You could
yes, on the twin turbo you did, and I remember clearly. Remember I raced for a German chap called Dave Weltz.
Oh yeah.
And that was actually a road chassis that he developed into a GT2 car, and it had a factory engine in it, so it was ballistic in a straight line. It had loads of power. It was running about 560. It was a very quick car. And he rang me. I was standing on the banking at Donington watching the start of the European Le Mans Series race in 2001. And I got this phone call, his phone rang, and I said to Melinda, "Oh, come on, what?" She said, answer it. And it was Dave Weltz saying...
Always the voice of reason.
Yes, exactly. She said, "Will you come to Snetterton and qualify my car?" And I said, "When's qualifying?" He said, 3 hours. And I'm saying, well, I'll do my best. So I had to go back to my car, back home near Silverstone, grab my gear, squeeze the dog, shoot over to Snetterton, all in 3 hours, which was, us to Donington's an hour. Yeah. And 2 hours to Snet. Yeah, so it was very squeaky.
Touch and go, yeah.
Anyway, they'd phoned ahead and arranged tickets at the gate, and we shot in up to signing on right down the pit lane. And just as I was running down the pit lane, pulling my gear on like helter-skelter, they were coming out from the collecting area into the pits to go out to qualify, and hadn't even seen this car. And then, of course, the TV crew said, "Oh, Callum, interview." And I'm going, I can't not do an interview. So I'm finishing pulling on my clothes. I said, "Right, yeah." And they said, "Right, off you go." And we qualified P3. The car was sweet. It was really nice.
Great era for these cars.
But what a beautiful car. I loved it. Anyway, yeah, the very sophisticated GT3s now.
What's your feeling about GT3s going to Le Mans?
Well, it's such a widespread formula now across the world that it doesn't really make sense not to have them at all. Yeah. I don't see why not. I think what they can do is amazing, I just feel a little too much aid. I prefer the driver to have more responsibility. But hey, I'm an old fuddy-duddy maybe.
Yeah, but you know what? It's just become so popular. I think the next round in Europe's got 57 cars.
I know, it's incredible.
You know,
incredible.
Getting 35 out in Asia.
Brilliant.
American Series struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
You're getting
SRO.
The Australian one is growing, but you know, overall the sheer number, and then the seed we don't get to see the Chinese GTC.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a bit of that because I do the Asian Carrera Cup, and it's often on the same weekend. So when I'm up in the middle of the night, I see the other races. IMSA going gangbusters with GT3s,
amazing
as well.
I mean, it makes sense to maybe not standardise, but roughly standardise across the globe, because then someone can go, oh, come on, let's go to America and do some, and let's go to Middle East or Far East and do some, and let's go here and do some, and it's the same car.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Right, Paul Phillips in the... Paul Phillips used to do the Geneva Porsche in the pits. Pit window closes. Actually, it's open. It's almost about to close. It's closing in 4.5 minutes, but we are getting the flurry, but it's still France. It's out of the lead, Emmanuel Collard.
Right.
Because he had been just going over into infinity and almost beyond, but he's in the pits at the moment. He dropped he was 4th on the start-finish line. So Francois Perroda, who'd been about 15 seconds down in 2nd place, is now leading the race. Philippe Cadore, who was 3rd, is now 2nd. So it's Ferrari from Ferrari, and Maxwell Lynn, who won both races here last year. Sorry, in Barcelona. It was Philippe Cadore who won here last year. Is now in 3rd place. So it's 3 Ferraris, and the best of the Porsches is Tim Pappas, and he'll be handing over to Jeroen Blekemolen. And Tim is leading the GT2A class. It's GT2C as the top class for the top 3 runners. But just remember, Emmanuel Collard will be continuing in this race. He started from pole position and has looked supremely confident.
Tim Pappas stays out for another lap. It'll be Jeroen Blekemolen who'll jump into that car. Dieter Questa's name on the side of it.
It's great to see some of the names on these cars, isn't it? It's a lovely slice of history.
I'm very much in favour of the fact that the old drivers' names stay on the car, and where allowed, and I know some of them wouldn't be allowed, but where allowed, they're running in period livery as well. I'm very much, because this is history on the hoof, Callum, isn't it?
Cigarettes are a little difficult, but you know.
And I understand that.
Well, yeah, you know.
I do understand that. But it's good to see some of these old cars. Bruce and I were saying earlier on, and Andrew, you know, I find it difficult to think I'm commentating on these cars. I remember these when. How could these be? How can I have these at a classic event?
I've no idea.
5 minutes ago, I was commentating on it. Oh no,
yeah, someone's got something wrong.
I have no idea.
Into the pit lane for the former Mount of Kristniakos and the man who went on to lead the McLaren programme as well, Andrew Kirkcaldy. Into the pit lane.
Talking briefly, going back to history, very sad to hear the death of Jochen Mass. He was absolute stalwart.
Very good point.
I was massively honoured to drive a car he drove, the AEG-sponsored Sauber C9 up the hill at Goodwood a couple of years back. And he was there, and he was so friendly and pleasant and appreciative. What a proper chap he was.
In fact, I noticed, I think one of Frederick Wakeman's car here, he'd raced, I presume, at Goodwood. I think it's Fred Wakeman's car at Goodwood with Jochen a few years ago, and he's got Jochen's name on the car.
Yeah.
It may not be Fred Wakeman's. I saw an awful lot of cars as I ran around yesterday, but yeah, you know, Jochen was someone who was a gentleman in life, but also a whole lot quicker than a lot of people thought. And his record, particularly when driving those Sauber Mercedes-Benz,
was pretty
C11s and the C9, phenomenal.
Yeah. And you know, and was kept on by a variety of manufacturers to bring through the next level of the next generation.
He'd been a recipient of that because he went from not being a racing driver to being a Ford Works driver in Germany in the space of about 1 hill climb in 1 season. You know, and in those days, of course, you had people like Jochen being pushed by the Ford Junior squad. You had Hans Stuck started with Ford, then he went to BMW, but there was, and BMW, of course, over the decades have had that long history of BMW junior drivers. And you think now you've got Dan Harper, Max Hesse, and you know, they put them wherever they can around the world, but they really make them work hard out of the car as well as in.
Hard
and I always remember when Roland Ratzenberger, who was quite a good mate of mine, thought he had half a chance of getting a BMW Junior drive. He said, I'm going over and they're going to test me. Could you just run me through which knife and fork I use at the table?
Yeah, I love the attention to detail, though. You know, it all makes difference. That's something, you know, I've always... You want to talk about this?
Yeah, in the... in the gravel. I'm afraid
he's not getting out of that, I'm afraid.
No, not even with wet
not
gravel.
A chance,
We were
not a chance.
talking about it's one of them. It's the Marcus, the number 97, the white and blue car.
Stephen Keating, and
Yeah,
that's not where he wants to be.
No,
Deep in the gravel, but going nowhere.
Yeah, unfortunately not. Talking of Marcus, I see Cors here with the Mantara that we won the 2000 championship with, or at least one of the cars I drove in that year, because I drove about 4 different cars. So it's really nice to see that again. Wonderful car that was.
Now, a safety car now to get that car out would really scramble things with.
Wouldn't it?
I'm just checking one little thing. Pit window is now closed,
Yeah.
and they may be in the pits, but not marked as so. Mark Sumpton, listed as in the lead of this race, has theoretically not made a pit stop, but it might just be the vagary of where his car is in relation to the start-finish line in the pits.
Yes.
I think
yes, yeah.
might be at pit in, and therefore just before the.
No, I think you're right, Bruce, because he's. You mean he hasn't got across the start-finish line?
within the pit lane. That's my guess, or he's really blundered.
The second place car, the Albert Weinzel car, that's in the first sector. Or in the second sector, rather. So he has missed the pit window.
Actually, I fear they may well both have done, because they've just completed the second sector.
Oops.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couldn't see it because of the spray.
Yeah, it's very tricky when it's raining this hard, and if you're in behind people, you're driving in a cloud of spray.
And also you've got to slow right down. Full course yellow has just been triggered there. Just trying to see who, what, where, and when.
Well, that's going to be for that Marcos, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think.
One presumes.
So this particular grid is using the endurance pits, and.
Blimey.
So the downhill pits, if you will, from La Source. And the interesting thing there is that certainly for the Porsches that were using it, and I've not seen this done for a very long time, Callum, and I've been around a very long time.
Haven't we all?
They weren't coming in through the F1 pits and then cycling, they were coming straight in from La Source.
Yeah, the briefing was interesting in that different series use different entrances to pits, and it was all a little bit only mildly confusing, but
well, if you're driving in multiple races,
yes, then you have to keep your wits about you and remember which one you're doing.
It is one of those dreadful sights when you see someone who's just got it wrong, and they sort of stop the car and
just go,
what was I told? What were they talking to me about?
Yeah.
In the driver's briefing.
Yeah.
Right, I think we're still full course yellow. The Krone Aviation car we were talking about, car number 57, Charles Scardina, American racer coming to play, and that racing livery for Krone Aviation. I mean, that's been on so many cars across what, John, 25 years now or so?
Oh yeah.
That'll be
phenomenal.
It is. I think it is acknowledged that Nick Johnson and Tracy Krone is the longest-standing driving partnership,
really
in professional racing.
Fantastic.
And they're still going.
Yeah,
they are still going.
We've gone green.
Yeah, we have gone green with just on 12 minutes to go.
There's plenty of water around there, isn't there?
Mark Sumpter is now in the pits, waiting to see if car 276, it started a few places behind Albert Weinzel. They were the cars that seem to be out of the loop, but have they missed the moment?
I fear they have. I'm afraid you don't get, and you know this, Callum, having raced for a long time, you get no free pass because there was a full course yellow or a safety car. And that's why cutting it fine is sometimes not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, tactics are a risk. They can work for you and against you. And you make the best decision you can with the information you've got at the time. And sometimes it comes unstuck. Other times you're the hero because you've just timed it to perfection. You're like 10 seconds to spare and boom, in you go. And
and there are other times when someone just didn't hear a message or misheard something, and you just see that pit lane closed, and they go on past, including race leaders at Goodwood over the years.
Yep. And as you know, cutting those tactics fine. If something like that happens, as you said, Bruce, you've blown it.
You have, and also just the one that always makes us even. I mean, what it's like for a team chief, but when your driver is done for speeding in the pit lane or something, you pick up a drive-through, and it's just like all the effort, all the finance, and it might be a 6-race championship. You've blown it.
Yeah.
And you know, certainly even endurance racing, since I started working in endurance racing, and it'll be the same for you, Bruce and Callum, the days of somebody winning even Le Mans by 10 or 20 laps are gone.
Oh,
You
miles.
fight tooth and nail over a double or a triple stint, getting on for 2 hours to make up 2 or 3 seconds
Yes.
on somebody, or pull away 2 or 3 seconds on somebody, and then you have a foo-foo in the pits
Yeah.
that cost you a drive-through that cost you 2 minutes.
Exactly, and you're gone. I've seen some good fight backs, but nowadays,
It's
and
nearly impossible nowadays,
you know,
without a wave by or something like that.
aficionados know this, but Le Mans is now a 24-hour sprint.
Oh, it is.
They're absolutely flat out, as quick as they can go for 25 minutes, 24
As
hours.
soon as your thumb comes off the pit lane speed limit till the moment it goes back on when you come
you're
in.
flat.
And all the drivers, and it doesn't matter how much traffic you're going through, it doesn't matter, okay, they'll take out slow zones and full course yellows now, but they never ask about what was my fastest lap. They always ask what was my stint average.
Yeah.
Because that's
the
how the
important
works
bit.
drivers are judged, and they are right on it all the time.
Yep. Racing to within 2-3 tenths a lap, every lap.
Consistency.
Yeah. Wins you more than being ultimately quick on one lap and then, fiddling about on some others.
We're just talking about Le Mans, and in fact, looking at these cars, GT2 class cars, when they first... Oh, dear, the
Emka car's gone around.
Porsche is off the side. He's
not on the gravel, though.
Not on the
so
gravel.
He's
It's
okay.
sitting
Is
with
that
the
the door
windscreen
open,
wipers going.
though, that I
It's
saw
sitting
Yeah,
there?
I thought the door opened, but I wonder if he's steamed up or something
Yeah.
and can't see anything. And he tried to open the door to, I don't know, get some air in.
It's looking pretty hairy.
It's
out there.
pretty heavy weather, isn't it?
That's coming
But-
down the hill, isn't it?
Yeah, that's coming to the bus stop. Going back to Le Mans, I mean, in days gone by, the cars couldn't go flat out for 24 hours. They broke.
No.
So they had to go, okay, qualifying flat out, and then we're going to knock 5 seconds a lap off to preserve the machinery. It's not like that now.
Yeah.
If you do that, you're gone.
But also, just...
Paul McLean, by the way, in that.
Look at that.
Just when these GT2 cars were racing at Le Mans, this type of car, in the early days of the championship, I'm fairly sure I saw a figure last night that between first and second in class was 24 laps.
Yeah.
This is because they were frail then. They didn't have the reliability.
Yeah.
You couldn't ever push them flat for so long. But now going back to
it's
John's
totally
earlier
different.
point about what do you feel about having the GT3s, at least they're pretty much rock solid.
Yeah.
And the performance differential
Well, I would
is nowhere
say
near as
even the GT3s now, when people say, oh, it's just a GT3, but the GT3s run 24-hour races all around the world. I've not been to Le Mans yet, and I've done 3 24-hour races, 2 12-hour races, and a couple of 6s, all of which have involved GT3 cars, either as the top class or in there as the top GT class.
Very few break down.
Very few.
Incidents,
Yeah,
contact,
yeah.
spins into gravel, that sort of stuff, but very few mechanical or electrical failures.
Right, we're back to full course yellow because of the Emka Porsche off. And just to highlight what's happening at the moment, of course you won't gain anything under full course yellow, but our race leader is Maxwell Lynn. 5.8 seconds clear.
Yeah, pit stops all done.
Mark
That's a good
Sumpters.
point, Bruce. Yeah, go on, go through the...
And then down in third place is Francois Perotto. So it's Maxwell Lynn, Ferrari, Mark Sumter, Porsche. Well, it's sort of, you do say Mark Sumter, Porsche, don't you?
Yes,
Then Francois
That's
Perotto and
synonymous.
Philip
The
Kadori.
Porsche
And
is
in fact,
not required
exactly.
at that point.
And then still in the pits, listed in fifth place, is Albert Weinzierl. And we don't know if
He's
missed
just
the pit
come out.
window.
Yeah, he's just come out. It was the Sumter and Weinzierl cars that we thought were on the edge, on the ragged edge.
Interestingly, Emmanuel Collard, he's been hampered. He was early in the pit stop window. In fact, he's one of the first ones to come in from the lead of the race, easy lead in the race. He is listed down in 6th place. So I think these full course yellow and periods have really rather hurt his chance of that early pit stop to come back up the order.
Yes.
Just the one race for you this weekend?
Yes,
fella?
just the one race for me.
Right.
And then we've got our track day on Monday here, which works out beautifully.
Oh, how lovely.
And then we go back through the night for track day on Tuesday at Brands Hatch. So it's actually worked out really nicely together, saving quite a bit of journeying.
You're proudly wearing your BRDC woolly hat.
Indeed.
We had Peter Dunbreck in here just before you, another BRDC member. The club doing well, a time of great change for the club.
Yes, and Andrew here.
As well, isn't he?
Absolutely.
The club
In
well.
fact, you two, I think, should be in as well.
Well, we've never been invited. Well, you might have done, John. They've lost my address.
I think you ought to be looking at that in the very near future.
Had Andy Preo with me a couple of weekends ago talking about the Nürburgring, and BRDC still doing what it does, but it does a lot of things in the background that people aren't aware about, particularly the charitable work. And
yeah, it does. It does a whole load of different things, and some of it, yes, like the Grand Prix Mechanics Association and charity and things like that. Yeah, lots and lots of bits and pieces that people don't know about.
Rising stars,
superstars, helping these up-and-coming drivers and already arrived but needing more help drivers. I don't know how much they help on budget, but certainly in terms of training and media stuff, which is so important now. Always, it has been for a long time, but I never forget this story about Schumacher, because, I was going to say earlier on, but we got onto something different, that I'm not really a hero worshipper, but if I was, Schumacher, I thought, for all his faults, we've all got faults, he redefined what a modern Grand Prix driver had to do to be. And I heard the story about him, which was that when he had to go to an evening function, he would request the list of all the guests' names and their wives' names, and he would greet them personally by name.
Nice.
On the way in, and I think that's just a whole level of attention to detail
and professionalism.
And if he's doing it for that, he was always the last to leave the circuit.
That was the Sir Jackie Stewart way of thinking, wasn't it? If we're talking about great BRDC and British drivers, he always thought that whatever he did, if the small things if people realised you were doing the small things, then the big things would be getting looked after as well. And the other thing he always said that I've taken on down through the years with what we do with Radio Le Mans and partnerships for that and all of our commercial partnerships, it's much easier to keep a current partner than to find a new.
Oh God, yeah. I learned something from Jackie Stewart's attitude, and that was, if you get a sponsor and it's worth X, and they're expecting X return, try and give them a bit more. Give them some
10%
plus something, and it's stuff that needn't actually cost you much, but that they go at the end of the year, well, we expected this, but actually we got this and this as well.
Under promise, over deliver.
Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't think it's a very common attitude. Unfortunately.
Right, we've gone back to green flag racing, and then in amongst the spray, Maxwell Lynn is just easing clear, 4.6 seconds clear. Francois Perraudot now into second place, and Philippe Kaddouri into third. Mark Sumter's fallen back down. I think that was just resettling in the order, but no, in fact, they've picked up the pace a bit more. So Ferrari seem to be the ones to have in these closing stages. But I think right now, with just under 3 minutes remaining, Maxwell Lynn just got to keep clean. He's not going to come across back markers, because, of course, under full course yellow,
they've cleared off in front of us.
A tiny bit of a margin.
And that's quite. It's a lovely position to be with that margin, but it's also a lot of pressure. But I mustn't make a mistake, and they have less pressure because they've got to chase. There's no choice if they want to try and win it. So it's a nice balance, and well, he's got the experience to carry that off, I'm quite sure. Right,
those three Ferrari 430s in the first three positions are all in the same class. They're GT2C. The car in fourth place is leading GT2A. That's Mark Sumter. He's got a tidy margin in that, because the first four cars are covered by about 11 seconds. Then there's a bit of a gap back to a driver who could or should. I mean, he got affected in his previous race, Emmanuel Collard, and now, he's leading a chase back, but he's got, well, it's just come through. It's gone through he's another 30. He's more than half a minute down in fifth place. So it's gone from him, but we know on a level stage he ought to have got this race. But the people like Maxwell Lynn, Francois Perraudot, Philippe Kaddouri getting ever handier in these cars.
And has Collard got a chance of third, or is he just too far back?
He's too far. He's 35 seconds down on fourth place, which is Mark Sumter.
All right, well,
Mark's just under 2 seconds down on Perraudot and Kaddouri.
Collard's about to put the fastest lap of the race.
And it's only a minute. Is that a minute and a half to go?
Yeah, this is the last lap now.
All right, so
this is the last lap now.
So there's not a huge amount of change going to happen, I don't think.
We were talking earlier on, whilst our leader's now on the last lap, with Callum Lockie here, about the changes that he's seen since he won the British GT Championship in 2000. But changes in classic racing as well. First of all, it's exploded. But secondly, it's become, I mean, it's big business, but it's become far more professional in every way, shape or form.
Well, they're importing the professionalism from modern motorsport into classic motorsport now, and it's really showing. Plus, if you think about the development in tire technology, brakes, dampers, everything, and professionalism, these cars are probably going a chunk quicker than they were in period, because they've got more power, they've got better tyres, they've got better brakes, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. So they're probably going a bit quicker than period.
But also another element, we had very nice cream tea and sandwiches brought to us by Motor Historics. Note, please.
Lovely.
Nigel Metcalf brought it down.
Well
He
done,
said
Nigel.
he employs, where possible, the mechanics who worked on the cars in period, and that is a massive helping hand. And also, it's a nice. Some of those people are probably at the age they might otherwise not be coming back, and it keeps the right people involved and people who were doing racing in a different age. And I think the ethos of that period still remains in historic racing. It's really important.
I really like that because the enthusiasm and spirit and passion for motorsport is something very dear to me. I find in the modern stuff, I mean, I'm not really involved in it now, but it's a little bit, no doubt someone's going to bite my head off, but it's a little bit too much about business and not quite enough about the passion. Oh, there's a lot of passionate people, don't get me wrong, but this is really people living dreams, isn't it, this stuff?
Yeah.
Modern too, but a little bit less. The passion in this paddock is just fantastic. Everyone you speak to is passionate about their car and their motorsport and their racing.
They want to tell the story.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Tell the story of the car. That's what I love about this. You go up to somebody and, you know, I'm fortunate. I've worked in paddocks all over the world, but over quite a long period of time, I've got to know a lot of people, so I know a lot of people. So if I'm going to a new paddock that I haven't been in before, there'll be somebody I know that used to work in the American Le Mans series, or used to work in some. Oh, you used to work for United, or you know.
Yeah.
You come into the classic paddocks, and quite a lot of the drivers are not pro drivers, so you don't know them. So you walk up, introduce yourself, and you know, what's your name? My name's Dave. All right, Dave, tell us about your car. As here we have the checkered
Maxwell
flag.
Lynn, double glory at Barcelona. Well, first part of this one here at Spa-Francorchamps. Under his belt, he can get back into the pit garage, squeeze his overalls out, and dry down. But that was. You know, he really kept on his toes at the end. He won by 6.5 seconds from François Perrodo. It was about negotiating the last lap of the voyage, if you would.
Keep it safe, keep it on the track, don't push too hard, don't take any risks. All these things he's done very well.
And he won the 2 races at Barcelona as well that Andrew and I were talking about at the start of the season, so that gives him a handy lead in the championship. And I should just remind you, if you are joining us, that these events, which used to be one-offs, are now championships. So we go through to Estoril. Callum, thanks for joining us.